It didn't start with a letter, or a warning, or even one of those smug little HOA notices Karen liked to tape to my front door. No, this started with a chainsaw at sunrise. I was still rubbing sleep out of my eyes when I heard the buzz. Not bees, not traffic. No, it was a gas-powered chainsaw ripping through my rose garden like it owed her money. By the time I stumbled outside in pajama pants and bare feet, my mother's English heirloom roses she and I planted before she passed were already on the ground. Petals crushed, stems mangled, roots yanked out like weeds. And there she was, Karen Delaney, standing with her latte and her clipboard like she just won a neighborhood bake-off. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I just looked at her, dead in the eye, and said 4 words. You just planted revenge. Let me back up a bit. Name's Leo Winters. I've lived on Sycamore Hollow Lane for 6 years. My backyard rose garden, that's not just landscaping, that's therapy. That's grief. That's the only place that ever made me feel close to my mom since cancer took her. I built it stem by stem, season after season. It was vibrant. It was peaceful. And yeah, maybe it stood out too much for the neutral beige world Karen wanted to control. See, Karen's not just some annoying neighbor. She's the HOA president, self-appointed queen of shrub symmetry and mulch compliance. She fined one neighbor for planting sunflowers too close to the sidewalk and shut down Twin Girls' lemonade stand because their signs weren't font-approved. So my garden, my chaotic, colorful, too-alive garden, it made her twitch. She'd filed complaints, said it drew bees, distracted drivers, violated the sacred 4-inch buffer zone. I trimmed, I complied, I even submitted a plant list, hoping she'd back off. Instead, she came back swinging, literally. That chainsaw, she claimed she had board approval. Turns out, it was a lie. She faked the letterhead, hired a landscaper, brought 2 teens in safety vests, like this was city business. I asked her why she didn't talk to me first, and she tilted her head and said, "Your flowers were non-compliant, Leo. This is just enforcement." I stared at the garden's graveyard, hands trembling. That night, I didn't sleep. Something inside me cracked, and then clicked. I didn't want to scream. I wanted to design my response. So I called Jamie, an old college buddy who works with the Department of Natural Resources. Told her I needed some unusual plants. She laughed. "What are you planting, a weapon?" I just smiled. "Nope, just a garden. A very educational one." Together, we sourced the most deceptively beautiful plants on Earth. Poison ivy that looked like fine ground cover. Nettles hidden beneath ornamental grass. Creeping vines with a bad attitude. I planted everything with care. Bordered it in lavender. Tucked it in mint. Added handmade labels with fake Latin names. To the untrained eye, it looked like healing. To Karen, it looked like surrender. She strutted by a few days later and muttered, "That's better, more muted." I invited her to lean in. She did, brushed a leaf. That evening, I heard she was scratching through the HOA book club, swearing it was mosquitoes. I just watered the nettles and smiled. Then it got fun. Karen started circling more, taking photos, whispering into her phone. One night, I caught her sneaking into my yard with a flashlight and gardening shears, trying to collect evidence. What she snipped was the most aggressive poison oak patch I'd hidden under a jasmine trellis. The next day, she was covered in bandages and rage. She called an emergency HOA meeting, claimed I was endangering the community with hazardous vegetation. I calmly slid across my board-approved plant registry and offered the HOA a tour. They came. They loved it. "So thoughtful," one said. "So natural." Karen looked like she was going to explode through her scarf. But the best was yet to come. Karen organized what she called a beautification parade, a thinly veiled inspection disguised as community pride. She taped flyers to every mailbox, didn't mention my name, but we all knew what it was about. I set the stage, fresh mulch, perfect borders, mint tea in hand, and a sign that read, "Natural Beauty." She marched down the block with neighbors trailing behind, clipboard in hand, that smug look she always wore when she thought she was about to win. She walked into my yard without permission, set up chairs, hosted part of her brunch party right in my poisonous masterpiece. Guests in sandals brushed against stinging vines. One woman rested her elbow on the ivy. They sipped mimosas. They smiled until the itching started. By Monday, 6 guests had been to urgent care. One filed a complaint. Karen tried to spin it as airborne irritants. No one bought it, especially when I showed the board footage of her trespassing. Again, they issued a formal warning. Then Drew, our neighborhood IT guy, dropped the hammer. An anonymous file of Karen's forged complaints, fake approvals, and manipulation going back years. The board stripped her of everything. She tried to sue me, claimed trauma. The judge dismissed it with prejudice. She left court red-faced, wrapped in gauze, like a haunted mummy. Her reign ended not with fireworks, but with a slow, public unraveling. A week later, she knocked on my door. No makeup, no power, just a quiet, "I'm leaving next week." I asked, "Where to?" She shrugged. "Somewhere that doesn't care about lavender bushes." Then she looked at me and asked, "You happy?" I shook my head. "No, I just wanted my garden back." She left, and I went back to watering. So, was that justice or just revenge?